Our top lead this evening. Imagine traveling on a plane where the pilot is busy turning the cockpit into a lounge. Cushions in place, business class food on order, alcohol on call, all for his sweet lady friend, quote unquote. I'll tell you where that quote is coming from in just a bit. She enters the cockpit and nobody knows what's happening behind closed doors. It's very scary, isn't it? Especially if you were in that plane. Well, it's happened on an Air India flight from Delhi to Dubai. The flight turned into a date and joyride for a Romeo Pilot and his lady friend who was on board as a passenger. Fortunately, the flight did land safely. What didn't was the pilot's date 30,000 feet high. It was a complete violation of DGCA norms. It was brought to light by a cabin crew member and an investigation is currently underway by Air India. Air India, in fact, says they have zero tolerance when it comes to anyone compromising passenger safety. But what's stunning are the details that the cabin crew has elaborated in the complaint letter to the DGCA. Allow me to tell you more on that. The pilot, according to the crew member, demanded a welcoming cockpit for his friend, almost like he was preparing a living room for this lady friend. The crew member goes on to say, the pilot sought drinks and snacks from the business class for his friend. He called for pillows for the comfort of his friend. The pilot got outraged when the crew member denied his friend alcohol in the cockpit. It didn't stop at that. The cabin crew alleges that the pilot started treating her like a personal servant. The first officer, what was he doing? Well, he was seen sleeping. Now, how serious a violation is this? Let's look at what the DGCA rules are saying. And the DGCA rules are very clear on this. They say only authorized personnel like pilots, cabin crew, maintenance officials, DGCA officials can enter the cockpit, no one else. And addressing the elephant in the room, safety of passengers on board the aircraft, we all know how critical flight operations are. One wrong move and it could jeopardize the entire flight. This begs the question, what exactly was the pilot thinking? And that's a question that I'm taking to my guests who are joining me this evening for a very quick chat. Parvez Damania is an aviation expert. Captain Amit Singh is founder, Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Amit Singh, before I come to you, I want to go across to Parvez Damania and ask him whether he can read the mind of the pilot and what the pilot was thinking. You know, you're absolutely allowed to have a love life. For heaven's sake, don't bring it to work. And that is exactly what the pilot did, endangering the safety of every passenger who was on board.
I think the rules are extremely clear and laws are very clear. You cannot allow any unauthorized person in the cockpit. Only the captain, the pilot, co-pilot, the air hostess, that also with permission, and the maintenance crew and the DGC authorized people or the DGC inspectors. Apart from that, the rule is absolutely nobody can be allowed to come into the cockpit. And I don't understand how he allowed his lady friend to come. Why did he do such a thing? And even asking for alcohol to be served in the cockpit, I think it's an absolute no-no. And I think the air hostess cabin crew has done the right thing by putting up a report. And I'm sure Air India will take strictest action because I think Air India, after all that has been happening, has become very, very strict. And I'm sure he will be de-rostered and an inquiry will be put up. And I'm sure very stringent action will be taken against the pilot. And I think what he did was completely wrong.
Mr. Damnia, but do we understand where this brazenness was coming from? Look, for any aircraft, whether it's an Indian Air Force aircraft, whether it is a civilian aircraft, the pilot is the person who takes all the calls. He's the captain of the ship, as it were. He's the one who takes all calls. Is that where the sense of brazenness is coming from, that I can do whatever I want and I'll get away with it because I'm the captain of this flight?
He is completely responsible for the safety of the passengers. Whatever he says on the plane is correct, and he should behave in an extremely responsible manner. And such behavior shown on his part shows complete recklessness. And I don't understand on such a short flight, Delhi to Dubai, how the co-pilot was sleeping. So I think all this seems completely bizarre and shocking.
Captain Amit Singh, would you want to come in here? We know that there are rules. We know that not everyone can walk into a cockpit. We understand that. I'm fairly certain the captain of the flight understood that very well. He knew what he was doing was against the rules, and yet he went ahead to do it. I want to ask you, given the sequence of events, was passenger safety at any point endangered? And if yes, please tell us how.
Well, there is a likelihood of the safety being endangered. Uh, Unauthorized persons inside the cockpit is both a security and a safety issue. Security, everybody knows. From the safety point of view, of late, aviation has seen accidents, incidents because of distractions at critical phases of flight. So such a person who was not supposed to be in here may cause an unintended or intended distraction at critical phase, endangering the safety of all the passengers and the crew of the aircraft. So that is the biggest issue here. Where it arises is the problem, because all our investigations, be it the regulatory or the corporate investigations, focus on fixing the person, not fixing the root cause. So the person or the captain who has invited this unauthorized person has done it basically because it has been happening or is rampant in Air India that you're allowed to upgrade without permission or get people inside. So that is the culture which is prevailing. That is what I can infer from what has happened and the available information. So since he has seen as a co-pilot, people getting, captains getting people inside. So he himself has started, or he has seen that other passengers are being upgraded by maybe other departments, not his department. So that is a corporate issue that Air India needs to look inwards, and decide that what is wrong with the system. Why are people being compelled to do such things and go to such extent? So it may be one-off incident, but it is a wake-up call to find out what is wrong in the whole system. Coming to the regulatory part, it is easy for the regulator to fix the person, suspend the license.
Captain Amit, I want to ask you one thing. Yeah, that will happen. Captain Amit Singh, because there's an inquiry already underway, and Air India has, issued a statement where they are saying that they have absolutely zero tolerance about things like this. Wherever a passenger's well-being and safety is compromised, we have zero tolerance towards it. So I'm fairly certain that Air India will do a good job of its investigation. And I have to say that, most of us have a certain image about Air India, and there is no doubt about the fact that in the last 15 years, its standards had dramatically declined. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was on a flight from Bangalore to Delhi, and I was pleasantly surprised about how good my experience was. And that is something that a lot of passengers are saying. They're pleasantly surprised with Air India and their experience with Air India. I want to ask you if the transition is, and Mr. Damania, if you'd want to come in as well, I'd want your view on this as well. If the transition from the old India to Tata-owned new Air India, if that's a bit difficult for the staff, for the legacy staff. I ask you this question because, at one point of time, Air India and its pilots were a rule unto themselves. There is a much more professional team in place. Do you think this is a carryover of that old culture, Mr. Damania and Amit Singh? Amit, you can answer that question first.
It is a carryover of the old culture, but if you see the new culture, the Tata Code of Conduct, which has been implemented in both Vistara and Air India, recently a whistleblower was fired from the job. Why? Because he apparently exposed the chinks in the armor, and they didn't like it coming out in the open. Whereas a lot of things have been happening both in Vistara and Air India of late, which they have been turning a blind eye to. So bringing about a new culture means you have to walk the talk. So that has to be seen. That has not been seen in terms of safety and operations so far. Yes, you might get new menus. Yes, people are thrilled about it, the new menus, new aircrafts, news about orders. But what has been seen in terms of safety is that there is not much change in people's morale. Pilots and all employees are looking for a better social standing. So how do you ensure that in the society you are
Okay.
looked at in a better way, respectable way? So your actions have to prove that. This particular incident, yes, it is a black
Correct.
mark, but again, I would say that it exposes the culture of the airlines, be it legacy or the Tata Airlines.
Also, I want to ask you, Mr. Damania, I think you referred to this point
Definitely going to be
in your first answer. In a flight as short as Delhi to Dubai, is it normal for the first officer to be, to take a snooze? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, because in long flights, I know it is
no,
allowed.
it's not.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's not normal at all. It's not normal at all on such a short flight. But I think definitely there is a huge change. Things are going to change after Tata's taking over. I'm sure the staff has also become more alert. They will have to polish up their act. Otherwise, they will lose their job. This is not a government concern anymore. But you have to understand that changing the entire mental attitude and the morale of the staff, which have been in a different kind of culture all these years, is not going to happen overnight. But I'm sure within some time we are going to see a drastic change, because I think the staff themselves will realize that this is not a government concern anymore. People have to show results, and if they don't show results, they'll be thrown out. Or the people who do not wish to work will automatically leave. So I think that we are going to see a positive change in Air India for sure.
Okay, you're being very hopeful, given the string of incidents, quote unquote, that Air India has been involved in. Are you being over optimistic is the question. Captain Amit Singh, I think you wanted to come in on the part where I asked whether a first officer should be sleeping on a flight as short as Delhi to Dubai. Go ahead, please.
Well, in a recent survey conducted by the NGO, 66% of the pilots admitted they have slept on board without informing the other pilot. Fatigue is the biggest issue worldwide, and Indian regulator and the airlines failed to address this big issue. So it is quite possible that it may be a Dubai-Delhi flight, but previously the person may have done a couple of flights. So fatigue builds up over a period of time. And we can have sleep apnea, you can doze off to sleep. It has been experienced worldwide. So this is a big issue of safety concern, which nobody is willing to look at. And about the culture of the airlines, you've seen AirAsia is also was being managed by the Tatas. Their head of operations, head of training, head of safety, all three have been suspended at various points of time for not complying with the regulations and such issues. So it is not that the Tata is saying that Tata Code of Conduct will solve everything, but it has to be implemented and shown that this works. So what is it that will give the passengers the confidence, not just the name, but they have to be seen. It has to be seen.
Okay, the last thing you need, the last thing any airline needs and any passenger needs is a Romeo Pilot in the cockpit. God save us if you are stuck with that. We'll leave it there for the moment. Parvez Damania, thank you very much. Captain Amit Singh, thank you very much. What's good is that these incidents are being reported by newspapers and television channels because it then becomes a warning for other pilots as well. Hey, if this is the behavior you've been carrying on with, don't do it, because if it gets exposed, you are in deep, deep trouble. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on our top lead this evening.